The president-elect says he may ditch America's adherence to the One China policy, essentially meaning that he's willing to trash nearly 40 years worth of goodwill between the world's two biggest economies. In its most basic iteration, this somewhat ambiguous policy means that Taiwan is a part of China, and actually Taiwan and China do agree on that. But the big sticking point here relates to who has control over that one China. Taiwan's government, the Republic of China, says they're the legitimate authority, but so does the People's Republic of China in Beijing. Right now in the pre-Trump age, the US is ostensibly on Team Beijing, but to understand why, we need to go back to when the whole Taiwan-China situation first became an issue. After a protracted civil war that ended in 1949, the defeated nationalist government of China fled to the island of Taiwan. Since then, Beijing has seen it as a sort of renegade province that it'll one day take back, but the island state vehemently maintains its own democracy. And for a while, the US was on Team Taiwan. But then, starting in the 70s, the US switched sides. From President Carter forward, diplomatic relations have effectively placed Washington on the side of Beijing in this ongoing dispute, which also means no state visits from Taiwan's officials, no taking calls from their leaders, and no formal embassies. But here's where things start to get tricky. In practice, this policy means one thing to China and another thing to the US. The US is Taiwan's #2 trading partner. Last year, the US sold $1.83 billion worth of arms to Taiwan, much to the chagrin of Beijing. The State Department has even explicitly said that the US takes no position on the question of Taiwan's sovereignty. And on top of all of that, the country is now listed as one of the freest nations in the world. But under a Trump presidency, this tricky policy may be brought out in the open as a bargaining chip. Donald says the US doesn't have to abide by the One China policy unless Beijing cuts a deal on trade and North Korea. China is livid that Trump is playing the Taiwan card, to the point that state-run media says he's as ignorant as a child. But the bigger concern here is that if these two superpowers go head-to-head over this island in the South China Sea, some fear that no matter what happens, Taiwan will be the one to come out on the short end of the stick.